Hi, this is Susanna Barton. I'm the founder of the Grand Plans online community, and I am thrilled to welcome you to this podcast today where we seek to normalize aging through planning and good old-fashioned real talk conversation. Today we have Amy Gunther in the studio with us today. She's an ACE certified personal trainer and group fitness instructor, and she's the owner of Gunther Personal Training here in Northeast Florida. You can find this podcast on our YouTube channel and on mainly through our website, www.mygrandplans.com, where I download all of these episodes for you to watch. So thanks for being with us. Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 6 of Grand Plans. And once again, we are here in the studio with Amy Gunther. She's a certified personal trainer and group fitness instructor and the owner of Gunther Personal Training. Amy, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah. So just as a little recap, in the last episode, we talked about the 7 pillars to senior fitness and health. The first being strength, the second being balance, the third being cardiovascular, and the fourth being flexibility. And we touched ever so slightly on posture, which is what we're going to get into today, as well as the last 2 pillars, which are cognition and reaction time. So thank you for coming back, and well, let's jump right in with some talk about posture. And let me make sure I'm sitting upright so you're not looking at me, judging me silently.
Right. No judgment here.
Yeah.
So again, as you had mentioned, I really feel like for active older adults, that's someone generally 50 or older. It could be 90. Active older adults, there are certain things you can do to promote your own health and wellness. And I feel like there's 7 things that you can do. We spoke of the first 4 on the 5th episode, which was strength, balance, cardiovascular, and flexibility. So go back to that if you've forgotten. And now posture sort of harkens back a little bit to flexibility. So posture, I strive to help people have good posture, particularly in the upper back. Okay. We live in a society that hunches. We look over our computer, we look over our tablets, we're looking on our phones. When you are seated, you are most likely curved forward slightly at the shoulder blades, and sometimes when you stand. So it's easier to correct that when you're standing, and then hopefully you're more mindful when you're seated. Mm-hmm. So what happens when you hunch? Well, as you age, you can actually develop sort of a hump. You've maybe seen that. Some of that is not avoidable because your skeleton is literally changing. But you can certainly help prevent some of that hunching by practicing having good upper back posture in particular. Mm-hmm. So one thing I would suggest to check your own posture is to stand up and go ahead and put your shoulders all the way back until you feel your shoulder blades.
Okay, I'm going to stand
Sue's
up.
Doing it.
Okay, standing up.
When you put your shoulders back, mm-hmm. like, posing for a picture, everyone says stand up straight. Are you able to pull your shoulder blades together? Those are your scapula.
Oh,
they feel like wings. You should be able to feel them retract or come together. And now if you let your shoulders tip forward, they come apart. They protract. And now you're hunching.
Oh, yes. I'm definitely hunching.
So pull your shoulders back, retract those shoulder blades. And while you have retracted in this position, your chest muscle, the pec muscles that attach your chest to the front of your shoulder are elongated, and that's helping hold your shoulders back and your scapula together. The rotator cuff is also helping here.
We're talking about muscles in the front and the back that are helping
so you're
straight?
Correct. So the chest and front part of the shoulder is elongated when your scapula is pulled together. And then the muscles of your rotator cuff are contracted when your scapula are pulled together. And they're helping keep your shoulders back.
I've also heard about pushing your shoulders down,
Well, yeah, you don't want to shrug.
extending your,
You don't have to think about that. That should
Okay.
be a natural thing. Most people don't shrug
and then
normally when they
extend
stand.
your hand and wave like a queen.
That's right. Wish you could see her now.
Yeah.
So that's one type of posture.
Okay.
Is for the upper back. And there are certain things you can do, exercises to help promote this posture. And one would be backwards shoulder rolls. You can do it standing, you can do it seated, and you're just rolling those shoulders backwards in a large, exaggerated manner. If you are above average in your fitness level, you could hold 10-pound dumbbells and do it. And then you would strengthen those muscles a little further. That becomes like a proper strength move at that point. Going back to our strength segment,
Yes.
last time. So you could help strengthen those muscles of the rotator cuff and upper back to help keep those muscles strong and your shoulder blades retracted when you're more effortlessly when you're not thinking about it. Here's another trick for good posture. And really, it's a little bit for core strength as well. Posture can, I don't know, it's kind of a large umbrella and under which I think core strength could exist. When you hunch, generally you relax your abdominal muscles. When you stand up straight, you do have a tendency to engage your core just a little bit. For example, if I were about to punch you in the stomach and you sort of flexed, that's called engaging or bracing.
Well, I was just about to ask, can you explain to someone what it means
To engage or brace your core.
Yeah.
That feeling of pulling your belly button into your spine, if you knew you were about to get gut punched and you sort of, I'm doing it now. Hopefully everybody is. And that feeling of pulling your belly button into your spine. Now don't hold your breath, and you can do that. You can practice squeezing, releasing, squeezing belly button into your spine and releasing, not holding your breath. And that's an easy passive core strength exercise you can do just sitting around.
Yeah.
You don't even have to stand for it. So that, relaxation of the abdominal area that tends to happen when you are hunching forward will improve when you're standing straight. You'll naturally pull your core in a little bit more. Best tip I ever read in a magazine. Magazines aren't super in fashion anymore, but this was, 20 years ago when I was pregnant with my first kid. To help with abdominal separation, which happens generally during pregnancy, you take a piece of yarn, something soft, not hard string, and lift your shirt while you're standing. And I'll demonstrate for Sue so she understands.
Good. And I'll explain.
So you would stand up nice and straight. You're engaged. You're not sucking it in hard. You're not holding your breath. Tie a string around you, just above your belly button, around your waist with a nice little bow.
like a belt?
Like a belt, but
Okay.
not crazy tight because you're
Okay.
not holding up
Right.
pants. And then as you walk around throughout the day or sit, when you suddenly start to hunch or just relax and you kind of hunch forward, you feel a tautness on that yarn. And it reminds you to stand up straight, engage your
Yes.
abs, pull your shoulders back. And the muscle it's actually targeting is called your transverse ab, which is a muscle of compression. That is its main job. When you suck it in, you've heard the term, or engage your core, you are tensing up that transverse abdominis muscle, and you are helping keep all of your abdominal contents, 25 feet of intestines, multiple organs, in place, tucked neatly behind that abdominal wall. If that transverse abdominis muscle starts to loosen, as it does with age, as people get less conditioned, more sedentary, not using it as much, they're losing compression. It's like loosening your shoestrings, and then your foot can kind of come out a little bit of your shoe, just like your abdominal contents would protrude forward. And surely you've seen someone, I see it more in males, older males, where they almost look like they're pregnant.
Yes.
It's not belly fat. They might have a very low body fat, but there's this protruding abdomen that is 100% decompression of that transverse ab due to lack of use.
Interesting.
If you can
I thought
practice,
it was like a beer thing.
I mean, in some instances, there might be somebody who has a lot of abdominal fat, but I mean, I've seen people with low body fat, thin people, and it's not a beer belly, but we do call it that. But what it is their abdominal corset has just loosened over the years, like loosening shoestrings.
Yes.
And then the pressure of 25 feet of intestines and all those other organs press outward, and you have this protrusion, just like your foot could come out of loose shoestrings.
Like aliens.
Well, it's terrible for the back.
Oh, gosh.
So if you can practice, doing squeezes, the yarn trick, better posture. Obviously, you can do exercises like planks and things like that if you're capable. That will help tighten up that transverse ab, which is like tightening your abdominal corset. But that will help keep those contents from protruding outward. When that happens, it's like carrying around a sack of potatoes on your core. So what's going to happen if your back is going to arch naturally as a counterbalance? It's going to pull you into a back arch. And then that can cause low back pain.
Right, because everything's connected.
Everything's connected. It's a kinetic chain. So that is something you can do. Just a little tip for working on your core strength. And just from an aesthetic standpoint, it looks good to have good posture. It makes you look taller. It maybe makes you look more confident at any age.
Yes.
Nobody wants to look, mousy or hunched over. And so
or like they've been drinking beer all day.
I don't know. We might have some listeners who strive for that.
No.
But so obviously you've got, you don't want low back pain.
Right.
You don't want to have poor posture. You don't want to have a hunch, and
Well, you look better. I mean,
I would say you probably feel better.
Right.
There's a reason why they call the core. I tell everybody there's a reason why they call it the core. Everything starts from there. If you've ever had an abdominal surgery, a hernia repair, a C-section, anything, you know that you cannot blow your nose without pain. You can't reach for a piece of toilet paper. You can't reach for a coffee cup without an agonizing pain in that incision. Because anything you do, lifting an arm, lifting a leg, twisting, it starts in the core. So keeping that strong is really like keeping your car engine in tip-top shape. Your car can still run if it has a slightly flat tire, but not if the engine, isn't good. And your core is aptly named. If it weren't so important, they'd call it the accessory.
Well, earlier we were talking about cardiovascular health, and I was thinking in my mind, the heart is, at the center of it all, but maybe it's the core.
Well, it's different things. You figure heart is probably, and the brain are important in terms of organ systems, but in terms of like a muscular system, I would say core is probably your most important muscle.
Yeah. Oh,
heart and brain, most important organs. Mm-hmm. Although I could debate skin as well, but that would be super nerdy.
Well, I'm going to suck in for a minute and get my posture right, and then see about moving on to some cognition. That is number 6 on your list of 7 things we need to be thinking about as we get older. But tell me about cognition, because sometimes I feel like the older I get, the less my brain works like it should. Like I forget things. I can't recall names. Like I barely remember your name.
I am 100% with you on that.
I want to call you Amy Strasbaugh.
I know the main name, and that's fine. I'll always be a Strasbaugh. So cognition, we definitely associate, memory loss with people who are older, more of our senior community. But so let me touch on, and I don't know if there's any help for those of us in perimenopause, but I do feel like there's also a hormonal link, and it's well documented, between certain fogginess, brain fog in people in our age group that's hormone related, very much to like what we would call pregnancy brain, prego brain. Hormones play that effect. And I mean, it's 100% true. Ask any woman who's ever been pregnant. You do get a little foggy sometimes, and it's been hormonally linked. And I feel the same thing is happening now, where suddenly I just forget someone's name, and I am good with names. So I think if you're experiencing some of that, it's probably normal, and hopefully it will pass. But actual memory loss that isn't phasic or due to hormones is, I mean, it is a real concern. We talked about a little neurobiology in the last episode in terms of how the mind and the muscles connect, proprioception, how your mind is telling your muscles to move in space, and how with practice that pathway improves and your balance improves. Cognition is going to have a similar pathway. I love to do little mind games, if you will, when I'm teaching classes. Here's an example of something you could do. And Sue, you said you like to do like a squat hold and then thread or figure eight your kettlebell through your legs. So you're getting leg strength, a little core strength. Another thing you can do is partway through switch directions. You probably always start in the same direction, whatever feels intuitive, and you probably do it the same every single time. Halfway through, switch directions, and your body is now having to learn. You've just slightly messed with the whole transmission system on the brain there, and you're just changing it slightly. Little things like that. I'll have members. Maybe we're holding a dumbbell in our hands and we're sort of making a figure eight with the dumbbell in our hands, and I'll have them switch directions. Sometimes we'll switch directions twice. And I'll be the first to admit, when I started doing this, I was lousy at it. I always messed it up. And it took months before I could really learn to fluidly switch directions on a dime without messing it up. So that is,
very interesting.
That is certainly a cognitive, improvement.
When you say cognitive, in my mind, I'm thinking, playing Wordle and Sudoku or whatever. But what you're talking about, at least part of it in this moment, you're talking about the cognition related to
movement,
your physiology, the movement. Yeah.
And I guess I tend to go there with physiology, movement. But the truth is, Wordles and jumbles and, all of that is also excellent. Word searches, reading, anything that makes your brain, tick away is going to be great. Okay. It doesn't have to be moves associated with like actual mechanics.
I wasn't even thinking it was related. So you bring up a really good point. Like that's part of the equation too, the mind's relationship with your movement or,
So on the last episode, I talked about how, I had people practice the flamingo, standing on one foot, staring at a spot, for balance. Because if you look at yourself, your balance gets messed up. And then how many times do you touch down, and then try it again, and then try it a third time, and you will almost guaranteed improve, or maybe not touch down at all by the third time. And that's proprioception. That's that mind muscle connection. So there's another sort of mind muscle connection, if you will. And this is great for cognition. And I guarantee you've done this before. You've maybe moved a piece of furniture. A lot of times I'll move the trash can if I'm peeling potatoes or something and I want it closer to the sink. And I'm done peeling potatoes, haven't moved the trash can back. And for whatever reason, I go to throw a paper towel away where the trash can used to be, even though it's right next to me at the sink. And I'm still in my mind thinking, or if you move a chair, you move the furniture, and in your mind, the chair isn't, you go back to where the chair used to be, even though you're like, wait, I moved the chair. Yeah. So the point at which you remember where the trash can is, where the chair is, they say you've made a new synapse, you've made this sort of cognitive, transmission, a neurotransmission, if you will. You've gotten I feel like you've gotten an extra IQ point when you finally remembered, oh yeah, the trash can is over here. So, when you're doing something physiological or mechanical with movement, the point at which your brain says, oh, wait, this is opposite elbow and knee versus same elbow and knee, same elbow and knee. You've had a cognitive moment. You've allowed your brain to do something, just like finding the word in the word search.
Yeah.
Except for incorporated movement.
Okay.
There's a lot of data coming in right now, for contralateral movements. I'm curious to see, where all these studies go. So contralateral means opposite limbs, upper and body. So say right hand to left knee or left hand to right knee. An example of that would be maybe, you're marching, but instead of tapping your right hand to your right knee, you tap your right hand to your left knee. That would be considered contralateral. A bicycle crunch, opposite elbow to knee when you're lying on the floor. That is a contralateral movement. So they're linking that to memory retention. And it's been a hot area of study lately. Lots of studies are coming out on those.
So even though that's a physical movement, it's a physical activity, that's actually building, I'm going to use words that I don't know what they mean, but
power.
Like neurons or brain power or whatever, to increase or to help
memory retention and prevent loss. Memory loss, that is correct. That's being studied right now. You never know where monies are going to go for studies, but I just know lately there's been some of that coming out.
But if you're, you notice you've got some memory loss, like you can't remember names, and it's not in menopause is not the
right, or pregnancy, right?
Yeah, right. Um, are there way can reading things like reading or the Wordles, the games, can that help?
Well,
Bring the
now,
memory loss back or the
and I'm not as
challenges?
well read on, things like that as I am with the connections between movement.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're just gobs of studies
Yeah.
that talk about just even walking, riding a bike,
Mm-hmm.
just exercising. Maybe it's because there's an increased circulation.
Right.
I'm not sure if the methodology of exercise and cognition is more powerful than, say, reading or
Yeah.
things like that. I don't know. I should look for the answer. I'll look for
Fascinating.
the answer though.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, we'll move on to number 7.
Okay.
And this is the last piece of the puzzle, and it's about reaction time and how we can use any physical movements to improve our reaction time. That by that you mean,
I knew you were going to ask me, what
like,
does that really mean?
well, it's like how you like to, so that you can respond if you trip and
Correct.
you're about to fall, and then
Correct.
you know what
Correct.
to do. You don't
If
just fall on your bum like a big nerd.
correct. So you've probably seen, the little trick when you were in high school or something where, you hold your fingers, 2 of your fingers out, and somebody drops a pencil from just above them, and you have to try to catch the pencil in midair before it hits the desk or the ground. And maybe you could never do it. But that's an example of reaction time.
Okay.
How quickly the message goes from we keep going back to this mind muscle connection. How
Yes.
quickly the message goes from your brain to the muscles of how to move in space. What is it trying to achieve? So reaction time is that ability to react quickly to whatever stimulus has just come into your brain. It absolutely diminishes over time. Going back to the balance in the other segment, the fall prevention, it has to do with your, the nerves, the myelin sheath, that covers these nerves, that transmit the signals, that breaks down with age, and that causes your reaction time to diminish with age. Again, like balance, like strength, like so many other things, practice, keep it intact. How do you practice reaction time? Well, it is so easy. You can do anything that practices a movement that would be slightly faster than what you would do in normal life. Here's an example.
Yeah. Give me an example.
Standing in place and just boxing with your arms. Just,
Okay.
I don't want to move the microphone.
No, I'll do it.
Yep. But
Like
faster than you would normally do. Yep.
Okay. I do this
Jumping
when I'm
rope.
walking.
Think about jumping rope. That's a fast twitch type
Okay, yes.
motion.
Right.
And when I say fast twitch, you have fast twitch muscle fibers. You have slow twitch muscle fibers. The fast ones, think about fast activities, running, slower, hitting a tennis ball, that's a fast move.
Pickleball. What about
Pickleball, absolutely
Ooh,
using
yes.
fast twitch muscles there in the
Yeah.
legs and the arms.
Okay.
Things that would be slower twitch would be like steady state walking, steady state biking, steady state swimming. So anytime you do something that is a little more of a fast explosive movement, you're using the faster twitch muscle fibers and you are encouraging reaction time. Jumping rope. But many of our listeners aren't going to jump rope. Maybe like, I haven't jumped rope in 10 years.
Yeah.
So just do what I call air jump rope. And you're just kind of
Skipping?
running in place and doing arms like a jump rope. Any kind of punching. What did you say?
Skipping.
Skipping would be considered a reaction time move. So I always have some type of a reaction time move. I can take almost any exercise and just pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah.
And it can be
Or maybe
considered.
dancing. Would that be?
I
with
do
some
think-
movement like.
Yeah, I do think some of the dancing would be faster, especially like Zumba where you're kind of shaking your hips. You don't really do that in real life, like not at that speed. I wouldn't imagine.
So that kind of movement, that quick movement,
Yes.
will help if I catch my foot on the rug and fall a little. I will be more physically prepared
Yes,
to respond.
that neurological mind muscle connection is fresher and more ready to help you catch yourself because you mentioned you're picking up your feet. Gait, GAIT, does also change with age, and there tends to be more of a shuffle than a full pickup of the foot. So that means the edge of a throat rug or area rug can absolutely be detrimental for some. But it doesn't even have to be falling. Think how many times you've walked into a retail business and someone didn't see you or was rude, but hopefully didn't see you, and they kind of dropped a heavy door and you quickly had to throw your hand out to stop the door.
Yes. That is my, honestly, that's
mean,
my
that
biggest
happens.
pet peeve in the entire world is people who let the door slam on other people.
And you've got to,
Annoying.
if you don't get your hand out there fast enough, you're going to get hit.
Yes.
How many times have you almost dropped your coffee cup or a piece of food started to roll off the counter? All of the times you caught those things are instances where your reaction time served you well.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be, it is for fall prevention, but it can also just be, convenience of daily life because you didn't let the pickle jar fall off the counter or whatever.
Well, and just, I imagine there's a lot of, and I'm not a good cook, but, in the kitchen, when you're cooking, there are things that you need to respond quickly to take a pot off the fire or.
Yeah. Something's bubbling over quickly. Grab the pot.
Right.
But quickly is really the word to think about. It's about reacting more quickly. And again, it's all coming from the brain and it's all things you can practice and should, along with, practicing those cognitive things, opposite elbow to knee, trying some contralateral movements, trying to change directions on simple things. Maybe you're doing some body weight squats. Instead of counting 1 to 10, count backwards 10 to 1, switch it up, count 1 to 5 normal, and then count backwards 10 to 5 on the second part. Anything you can do to kind of dust those cobwebs off your brain and force yourself to think a little bit more is going to help with the memory loss. And, working on the posture, going backwards now through what we've talked about.
Which is good for the brain.
Which is good for the brain. I'm going backwards.
Yes.
I do these games with myself all the time.
Yeah.
Good for back pain. It's good for your aesthetic look, and it's going to, of course, help with your core strength ultimately.
Yep. And then all the rest, the flexibility, the cardiovascular health, the balance, and the strength, all of it, all those 7 things.
Those 7 things
are related to the movement and the brain. And I just
they
think it's
are
very fascinating.
And if you practice and focus on these 7 ideas, your foray through active older adulthood will be easier. It'll be better. It'll be safer. I'm just a huge believer in introducing all of these aspects into your life whenever you can. And when I'm teaching a class, say for example, at the Williams YMCA, I teach an active older adults class. I try to put every single one of these ideas into the same 45-minute workout. I make sure we have a reaction time move. We have a posture move, a balance move. We're doing our stretching. We got our flexibility. We do balance move. And of course we have some strength moves. I'm trying to get it all in there. And if I can play some mind games by changing how we count or switching the directions of the way the dumbbell moves or starting on the left side instead of the right side when we had been starting on the right side, that's cognition. And just like that, I've gotten all these 7 great ideas into the minds and bodies of my active older adults.
That's awesome. And what I like about all of the things that you're saying is that it's not something we are going to be doing as when we get older, or when we're in our 60s or 70s, 80s. We can do it now.
Start now.
I mean, we could have we all should have been starting a long time ago. But these are things that aren't, it's an upkeep. It's something that's continual.
It is. And sometimes the benefit is more realized in an older adult than it would be in, say, a 40-year-old adult.
But maybe you find out later why all of these things are important to do.
I can assess the benefits of doing these things. I see it all the time in my seniors, my 74-year-olds who can stand on one foot for a minute if I asked, him or her to do that. My, seniors who can do squats on a Bosu balance ball.
Amazing.
I see it. I believe in it. The evidence is right in front of me every day.
Well, you are so wise and so well versed in all of your, all the things that you have learned. And I'm so grateful that you have shared this with our listeners. And I hope one day you'll be having some kind of book to put out about this lovely information that can help all of us right now. And I think it's brilliant. So I thank you for being on the show today. And
my pleasure. And I'm getting on that book.
Yes.
We'll get back to you on that.
Get on it. I look forward to it.
Okay. Thanks,
All right,
Sue.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you for listening to the Grand Plans podcast today. I hope you took away some good information. I know I sure did. You can look for this podcast on our website, which is mygrandplans.com. I have listed there all of the podcasts and blogs, as well as some other information you might be interested in knowing about. And I also encourage you to sign up for the Grand Plans newsletter. It's a semi-monthly publication that it will come out on. It's coming out on Substack, and it'll come right to your mailbox. So look for that today and join. Thanks again for being with us.